Hey everybody, Larry Powell here, your host for Studio HFL, where you truly do hear from legends. Welcome to tonight's interview with Jen Marotta. You can see Jen here on the other side of the screen. Before we get to Jen, though, I want to thank Trent Austin and Austin Custom Brass for sponsoring not just tonight's interview, but all of June. Of course, last week we had Rachel Samoya. Tonight, Jen. Next week, Sarah Stoneback. The week after that is James Morrison. And to finish out June, we have Chris Coletti. Not a bad lineup, right? That's great. Let's see. Of course, you can find all of these interviews on any podcast platform. The audio from tonight even will end up on wherever you get your podcasts, Apple or Spotify. The video will end up on the YouTube channel. And of course, if you'd like to sign up for the newsletter, you can do that at studiohfl.com. And if you would like to become a patron, a supporter of Studio HFL, you can do that at patreon.com/studiohfl. And let's see. Oh, one more thing. Hey, I've got a new shirt to show here. I'm wearing it. And I'm wondering. Right. So participation in this conversation, Jen, may lead to episodes of regret.
It's a common theme.
An interview specific. I got to get my camera fixed there. There we are. So yeah, just trying to be a little bit funny with that.
I love it.
Okay, almost adjusted. Hey, there we are. Okay, so Jen Marotta, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me. This is really great.
I'm so thrilled to have you here.
Yeah,
of course, you're famous, but you've become extra famous as of late with these really wonderful videos you've been putting out of the Arben's Art of Phrasing.
Thank you. It's been really a fun project to do.
Well, what in the world possessed you to put that out there?
Yeah, it's been something that I've wanted to do for a while, and obviously with the whole pandemic situation not performing, it's given a little bit more, I don't want to say time, because it's actually almost been less time for those that have little ones at home 24/7 for the last year, understand. But at the same time, I felt like I wanted to sort of put a little bit more out there that I hadn't been on social media. My USC students are always saying, Jen, you need to be more active on social media and do more promoting. And I'm not the world's best self-promoter. And so it wasn't really about promotion, but it was just being a little bit more involved in sort of the education world and contributing in a way that I felt excited about, because a lot of my students use these etudes and the entire Arben book in general, and there's not much resource out there. And a lot of them, when they get the piece for the first time, they look at it just like with eyes, like, I don't even know how to start. And I just thought, I could at least give some starter tips for these. They're not super long videos, but at least enough to give sort of a starting point to branch into them. So it's been fun. And I, when I record each one each week, I notice, oh, there's still a lot of these left. So I'm just trucking along and enjoying every week of it. And it's been a fun learning process on how to record and how to edit a video together, and all things that I actually had zero idea about before. And now I know just a little.
The Hokan took the easy way out. He only chose 36.
Yeah, but they're pretty tough 36 and it's
right?
Hokan. Well, they're not tough for him, but they're definitely a little bit more involved than the 4-lined Arben Art of Phrasing videos.
But just to think about, some of these are pretty dated, right?
Yeah,
I mean, even My Country 'Tis of Thee, right?
Yeah.
A tune that you think every kid's going to know that goes through band. Even though some people don't even know how that goes, but
yeah,
so having the resource there, and I've thought about finding the lyrics to all of these as well would be such a great help, because then you really learn, like where those commas go and the periods and all that. But
exactly.
Who was it that first put out it was like David Baldwin, I think, did the characteristic studies years ago.
Yeah, he did some of I think Charlier's as well.
but what a great resource you're providing here. And, I'm
Thanks.
sure, well, I'm not sure, but I'm sure hoping that you'll make it to 150.
I'm hoping. I'm just doing 1 week at a time. I have sort of a stockpile of some of the playing parts of them, and then the longer involvement is just the putting together the talking and putting the video together itself. And so yeah, I'm gonna keep going. This summer I might be a little slower, just because I'm going to be in the teach ranks, but on that, I'm gonna keep going. Once I'm kind of one of those stubborn types that when I decide on something, I'm gonna do it. It might take a while, but I'm gonna do it.
Have you been surprised by any of these? Like, ooh, I really like this one.
Yeah. I mean, the ones I've done so far, I know pretty darn well, just because, when you start, at least when I start teaching them to students, you start with number one, you just kind of work through them. As you get going in the middle and as you look ahead into the coming ones, they're lesser common. And so, as of now, the ones I've recorded so far are pretty common to me, but I think some of the ones coming up, I definitely have to, find some reference recordings to make sure I'm doing it at the right speed. There have been a few that I've started to play through, and then I listen to it and I realize I'm way too slow or way too fast. A lot of times we play them way too quickly. So I've been playing them relatively slow, based mostly on what I've been hearing, the different vocal recordings I found of them, but so far nothing too off the wall. I know a lot of the variation ones come at the end, which definitely are a little bit more technically involved, but I've got a little time. I can practice
Got
for
a little
now.
time.
Yeah.
So, but see, you've set an
Exactly.
expectation, right? It's like, everybody's chomping at the bit for Håkon to make the next Charlie A debut, and it's like they're waiting for
Yeah.
you to make the next Arbin debut.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I'm not sure.
yeah. But I
Definitely
mean,
ready for Hokon's. Every
but
week, every time his comes out, I'm ready for it.
and on C trumpet, no less, right?
Mostly, yeah, there have been some, if it puts it in the key of D flat, I might choose to play it on B flat, but C is definitely my happy place versus B flat. But, I definitely, when I'm playing back and forth in person with students, I'll pull up my B flats just so they're not confused. Or a lot of times I will stay on the C so they're not cheating by looking at valves and all of that.
Right,
Exactly, kind of mix it up.
right. Oh, I don't want to forget. Marissa Benedict here says, "Hi, Jen. Is that somebody you know?"
Oh, I love Marisa. She's great. Oh, hi, Marisa. I now I see the chat on here. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's one of my really good friends. She's in, we're buddies in Los Angeles, and she's moved to Minnesota and has an awesome teaching job there. I miss her greatly. Thanks for joining, Marisa.
yeah,
I miss
Marissa.
you.
Thanks so much.
Yeah,
I said Marissa. I apologize. And I have a
that's
sister
what.
named Clarissa, so I should have gotten that right. So, well, you didn't exactly have to start the Arbin thing to build your resume. You've already got a pretty nice resume going.
Well, thanks. It's been
Um,
a fun journey so far.
well, should we go backwards, or should we maybe start with at the beginning? Which way would you like to go? I want to hear it all.
Ooh, well, I'm not good at backwards. I can start from the beginning. How about that?
That's perfect.
Born at no, I'm just kidding. I grew up in Chicago, and I grew up in a really great band program. I had it was Naperville, Illinois, and it had just a really awesome sort of wind ensemble band program, and I had a really great band director. So early on, I had a really just great experience with just playing, as a group and with your ear, and just really awesome teaching from early on. So I was really lucky to have that. And after that, I ended up going to the Eastman School of Music. Started there for 2 years for my undergrad, and I was studying with Barbara Butler. And when they announced that they were transferring, I transferred with them to Northwestern. So I did 2 years at each, graduated at Northwestern. After that, I got my master's degree at DePaul University, where I was studying with John Hagstrom. And I played in the Chicago Civic Orchestra there. I did a year, then I got a job in the Marine Band. So I jumped ship. Went across the country, and I started my job with the Presidential Marine Band. And so I was there for 4 years. And I'm kind of going a quick trip through. I met my husband there, and so my husband is Tom Hooten. He ended up winning a
Who?
job, right, Hooten. And so he won a job in the Indianapolis Symphony, which is where you are.
Mhm.
And he and I were separate for a while, and then I ended up finishing my master's at DePaul because I had, I really wanted to teach as well. So I thought the master's degree was a smart idea for that. Taught at Illinois State University as my sort of first college experience. As Amy Gilreath was on a sabbatical,
Mhm.
so I filled in for her. And then we moved to Atlanta. I taught at first a lot. I played a lot with the Atlanta Opera, and then moved to LA. Got a job at University of Southern California a couple years after we moved here, and then I've just been freelancing and raising kids and teaching at university and teaching private students and just sort of having a good time.
You make that sound all so easy and fast. I mean, it's like, well, that was a breeze. Just a hop,
Yeah,
skip, and a jump from
yeah.
Chicago to LA.
I've
Um,
definitely freelanced and started over in quite a few cities. So it's been, each one wasn't super quick. Some of them were quick, some of them were not. It's each city is very different, and that was one thing to really learn along the way is how to navigate that and how to not step on toes, but also assert yourself. It's kind of a fine balance and a different line in each city. So that's been sort of interesting.
how did you feel the vibe was here in Indy?
Say that again. It cut
Oh,
out for 1
the
second.
vibe here in Indy. How'd you take the vibe?
Oh my gosh. Well, I wasn't there that long, but one of my closest friends of all time is Jared Roden.
Mm.
And Jared, I knew before I was there. We play in the Tetons together, and we play in
Yeah.
the Chicago Music of the Baroque together in every December. And so he, right pretty quickly on, I started playing a lot of the, what's the studio? Airborne?
Airborne. Mhm.
Yes. So I was playing there a bit. It was very like the trumpet section in the Indianapolis Symphony was so nice. Just everybody was very kind and inviting. It was just a very happy place, I thought, at least, and Tom loved it, and he loved the section, and he loved the people, and it was very relaxed, but also still serious. It was a nice balance, very family oriented, and a small city, sorry, a big city, small city feel at the same time, kind of a mix. But freelance wise, I didn't dive in. I wasn't there long enough to dive in too much. I don't know how much there is there because I didn't really have much time to do
Not
it.
much right now.
But
Yeah.
yeah, right, exactly, right. Not much going on, huh?
No, I tell you, I've always enjoyed Indianapolis. I felt like it's been
Wow.
just, this is not your cutthroat kind of city. I mean,
Yeah,
it's people
yeah,
really are uh, helpful to each other. It's like if you
yeah,
can't get a gig, I know in the East Coast, I've heard people say, oh, they'll never refer anybody,
yeah.
because, and that's never
Sure.
been my experience here. Yeah, everybody's great. And Jared is one of the best,
Oh, I love
right?
Jared. He's great.
Yeah.
He's great.
And a great sense of humor.
For sure. My favorites. We both, every time we get together, we talk in our Chicago accents very heavily. It just seems to always come out right when whenever we get together. We're
So what does that sound
uh,
like?
hey there, how you doing, you guys? We're gonna go to the other restaurant. That's my Chicago. I
That's perfect.
definitely have South Side of Chicago family, so that's very easy to break into that when I'm not careful.
So I'm curious, you say you wanted to teach, you knew
Yeah,
at some point, but when did that occur to you? Because, when you're studying with somebody like Barbara Butler,
yeah.
you might think you're really focused on that orchestral career.
I think because of my upbringing in Chicago, they had really cool programs where some of the high school students would teach some of the middle school students. So from very early on, I got really comfortable talking and trying to help people, and I realized how much I really loved that. I loved the one-on-one. Early on, I thought maybe I wanted to be a band director because I liked that, and then the first was kind of in front of a crowd of trumpeters, I remember thinking, maybe not the group. I like the one-on-one a lot better. And I love doing, group trumpet stuff now these days. But I think the one-on-one, I just loved sort of that, just the collaborative work. And so early on, I knew I wanted to do some sort of teaching. So when I got into the Marine Band, I started up a private studio on the side, and I probably had, 10 students a week or so. And I loved that. I think from then on, I always knew I would teach in some sort of form. When I moved to Atlanta, we lived in the mecca of just band county. We lived in Marietta, Georgia, which there's so many high schools, probably 10 really good high schools, all within a 30-mile radius. And you couldn't have enough students if you lived there because there weren't enough trumpet players to teach all those kids. And so I had a waiting list of students, and I had really great students, and I don't mean great, necessarily players. I just had great students, great kids, and my favorite is just seeing them improve and learn how to grow on the trumpet, whether they use it on trumpet or not. And I loved seeing these students go into to become doctors or become engineers, but the skills that they learned in our lessons that they could transfer to whatever they did. So that's, I think with this urban thing, that's sort of where it stemmed from is just, I love that. So in Atlanta, I taught a bunch. I had so many students. That was before I had children. So I was just load my schedule up and taught at the universities as well. So, yeah.
Is there an age that you really feel like you identify better with? I mean, are you good with a beginner, or you enjoy the college level, or all of it?
I kind of love all of it. I'd say if I had to choose, I have two favorite ages. I love students that are the students I teach at USC. I love that age. I love the sort of development and the they've come a certain way and they're trying to fine tune it to get into sort of the real world. But I also really love young students. I love the beginners. I love the middle school kids. I think my very, very favorite age to teach is probably beginner to middle school and the one-on-one. I like trying to take complicated concepts and say them in an easy to understand way. And I really enjoy assessing each student as an individual and figuring out how I can help them to improve rather than just having a set sort of, I use this method in this book. And I don't do urban with everybody. I will switch it depending on the student and sort of piece it together that way. But I love the beginners, just their energy and the excitement they bring. And help, like I said, trying to help them learn how to focus and sit in a room and try and improve and teach them how to teach themselves. That really excites me.
I've got a beginner. He's maybe had 4 lessons with me so far, but he
Nice.
saw a video of Dizzy Gillespie.
Nice.
So he thinks that you have to puff your cheeks out. And I tell you, it's he has no embouchure at the moment, because I keep telling him, this is we're working on it. But I mean, it's great to aspire to be like Dizzy.
Yeah.
But so we've got some ground to make up there. But bless his heart for what is it, a 5th grader? What is that? 10, 11 years old, right?
Yeah.
For wanting to do that. But
that's very cute.
So I'll throw this out there too. I just finished book 1 for Suzuki, but I'm taking book 2 trumpet training. Cool. So we're looking at starting with 4 and 5-year-olds. Can you imagine doing that, starting? And I can, because I've observed it. It works.
Yeah.
It's
wow.
Very cool.
Sorry, cut out for 1 second. I missed what you just said.
Oh, just that working with 4 and 5-year-olds works. A lot of people think that
that's
the teeth, the embouchure, that whole thing. But use a pocket trumpet, and
I love that.
It all works. It all works.
I love this. My son actually started on Suzuki piano, so I love the whole concept of it. It's great. It's really cool.
Is he still going?
He is, he switched from Suzuki since after his first book. It was more of a teacher switch, like move. So we
Mhm.
kind of went a little bit more into the traditional, but he went through the whole book, one, and got really his ear, it improved his ear so much, and so now he's learning to read, and he's got to keep his reading up with his ear, just because his hands are finding all these because sound cool, and he's only 8. He just turned 8, but yeah, I love the Suzuki program. I thought it was really, really awesome.
Um, that's your 8-year-old, right?
Yeah.
And what about your 4-year-old? Is she into music yet?
Well, we were just starting the Suzuki program, but the teacher left, and finding a Suzuki piano teacher in LA has been very difficult, actually. And then
Mhm.
pandemic hit, and so we just sort of are tabling it right now. There is no piano Suzuki teacher anywhere within 40 miles of us. So
Oof.
we have a really great, just, traditional piano teacher really close to us. So we might start her there in the meantime. But she, my daughter's another whole topic, but she's definitely got some sort of performer, and she's actually going to be in a TV show in a couple of days. I know well, she's going to be filming it in a TV show in a couple days. So
Well, how
stay
cool is that?
tuned, and some ghost adventures Halloween special comes out. She'll be in it.
Well, that's awesome.
It's kind of a new, yeah.
Um, okay, so this just popped into my head. What's it like having 2 trumpet players practice in the same house?
It's obnoxious. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not really kidding. No, actually, we for our sanity, we had to have well, okay, so we moved into this house about 5 years ago, and we said, okay, the room I'm in right now will be our office. It's technically a bedroom. We turned it into an office. And then we realized within a few weeks that wasn't going to work to share an office, because we want to do things at the same time. If we want to practice at night, we either have to rotate and we'll never see each other, or we just are always trading off or trying to work out teaching and all that. So we had in our sort of downstairs area, there's this little area, we had a room built in, which is where Tom's studio is now. It's this little cave, and it's soundproof. So if we can play there until however late. But so we don't actually hear each other playing a ton during the days, and the kids' rooms are double doors so they can sleep and not be annoyed when we're practicing. But it's loud for sure.
Well, yeah, I'm thinking, it's not like he's only playing, Conconi or the Arbenz stuff. I mean, you guys are both
Yeah.
working on orchestral rep as well.
Definitely. And I'd say in a normal life, he's actually not here a lot playing. Might be practicing at work, or
Hmm.
he'd get there and warm up and get to a concert. Or if he has 2 rehearsals, he might practice there between. So in normal world, we're not always playing here all the time. But definitely, in his little cave, you can, if you're really quiet, you can hear it very distantly. So he can play it all out, and it's fine because it has a door about this thick.
Hmm. So what's
Yeah.
what's the state of the LA Phil at the moment?
They're doing great, actually. Surprisingly, they were able to pay musicians, a smaller rated salary, but they were able to maintain some support of the musicians, and so they've been really great. I think in this whole situation, and they're opening up the Hollywood Bowl this summer, so they are starting up in a couple weeks. They've had a few random things, but it's not been to live audiences. Actually, I think they may just have had their first live thing a couple weeks ago, but this summer they're opening up the Hollywood Bowl and they're going back. So it's, knock on wood, all gonna be okay. But LA Phil's been really, we're super grateful to that organization. Tom's really grateful for all of that.
We had I play with a few regional orchestras around here in Owensboro,
Mhm.
Kentucky. We had a concert last weekend. I bet
Yeah.
outside concert, and
Huh.
I bet 5,000 people showed up for this.
Really?
I mean, this
Wow.
people are hungry, right, to get
Yeah,
back
they
to a live
totally.
music experience.
For sure. Definitely. We're all ready
Yeah.
for it. That's great. I'm actually
So,
playing my first live concerts will be in July. I'm doing the Grand Teton Music Festival for 5 weeks this summer.
mm-hmm.
And so it will be, it's kind of interesting imagining playing suddenly just jumping into this hard rep, Peter Grimes and stuff without playing with humans for so long. So, but I'm excited.
It is different. I'll tell you, in
Yeah.
fact, I had an assistant this past concert and he's like, man, this is so different than playing in my bedroom,
Yeah, for
because you
sure.
forget how much sound you have to put out. And
Yeah,
it's
it's hard to replicate that in your little office here.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how many years have you done the Grand Teton Festival?
I think this will be my 15th summer doing it.
Wow.
And yeah, it's been a great tradition. It's a really just amazing group of musicians and people. And I love being there every summer. You see the same people, and then you see their children growing up together, and it's kind of a rotational crew each week, but it's the same rotational crew as
Mhm.
from year to year mostly. And so it's a great orchestra. I think it's just filled with great musicians who are just great people to work with, and so the energy of that orchestra is just so unlike anything I usually am part of, and it's just so I don't know, it's just like another experience. Everybody's just really listening to each other and working together, and it's just very supportive, and yeah, I love it.
How do you decide who plays what?
They have it's kind of they bring in some principals to play. I'm pretty much because they've had before Barbara and Charlie have always been playing. They've been doing Music Academy of the West some more, so they're some few weeks, as they have in the past. But typically they'll have some people set as their principals. So
Hmm.
typical principals for Grand Teton Festival would be Mark Inouye, Barbara, and Charlie. Tom has played as well. Russell Campbell from Dallas, Chris Martin. Those are sort of the rotated principals. And then Charlie Duvall, most of the time, is second trumpet. He's been coming for many years, and I've been just for the last 15 years, essentially kind of the next one. So it depends on what rep is, and thankfully a lot of rep this summer needs that many trumpets. And then there's another rotation of people that maybe have jobs in the summers that maybe, but it's pretty much assigned by the music director, Donald Runicles, and the personnel manager. But it's if I'm playing, I kind of know what I can sort of guess what I'm going to be playing.
But what a great hang, right? I mean, the playing
Oh,
is probably wonderful, but just being around that group has got to be a blast.
definitely, it's so much fun. Yeah, I've got so many close friends. Sitting right behind Gail Williams every week
Mm.
is just like the happy place. She just sounds like $1,000,000 every time, every summer. I'm like, how does she sound like this? I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Okay, so give us the lowdown. Give us some really juicy stories. No, I'm kidding.
Ooh.
Yeah,
I was like, I don't know if I have any. Not from
yeah.
there.
No, no, I'm sure nothing questionable ever happens around
And the-
anything like that. Right?
yeah.
Yeah. So you know what? Going back to Jared, I remember he would play a job here in Indianapolis, and he'd say,
Yeah.
"I'm headed out there." He would get in his car,
Yeah.
and then he would say, "I only got 2 tickets on the way." Two
Yeah.
speeding. He said, "I forget how many hours to get there, but you know,
Yeah.
uh, he doesn't drive slowly to get out there."
Yeah. Yeah. He
But
definitely he always takes his car. It's a long hike.
yeah. Oh, so hiking, right? I mean, do you get a
Oh
chance
yeah.
to actually get out and enjoy the park?
Definitely. For sure. It's really close to the Grand Teton National Park. And if I have some days off, I'll try and get up to Yellowstone as well, which I plan to do this year. Definitely hiking. In the past I've done giant crazy hard hikes. With a when I now life is a little different when you bring a 4 and 8 year old.
Mm.
I have hired a babysitter so I can go on a really tough hike.
Mhm.
And then I take them on, more kid friendly hikes, but definitely we're always outside. There's bike paths right there, and
Mhm.
we're active. It's very fun. I can't wait to be there this summer since we couldn't last year.
Do you camp or hike close to where you are out in LA? Did I lose you?
Say that again. It was
Do
kind
you
of
camp or hike
yeah.
where you are out in LA?
We haven't done camping much. Definitely hike. We live right next to some trails, so definitely can walk out of our door and go on some nice day hikes. Camping we haven't done as much. I think, with little ones, I think they're now at the age where maybe we could do that. The when when we moved to Los Angeles, maybe TMI, 2 weeks later I found out I was pregnant, and so. Pretty much from as soon as we got here, I was, gearing up to have a baby.
Mhm.
And then we had our daughter a couple years after that. And then, so we haven't been able to be quite as adventurous. But I think now that she's 4, we could probably manage that. Camping would be really fun. That would be great.
Well, I didn't realize how close you were to. I was talking to Wayne Bergeron the other day. He was telling me, he and Barb were up, whatever mountains are close by.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
Trying to think where he told me, but he may not want me to
There's
tell
a
that. Sorry about that, Wayne.
Wayne's awesome.
Yeah.
There's a lot of places around here. That's one thing I love about LA. A lot of people when we lived in Atlanta were like, "Really, you're going to move to Los Angeles?" And I love it. I think it's a great city. It's beautiful weather. It's just a nice, even though it's a busy big city, it's still a relaxed vibe, and I really like it here.
Chicago, Dallas, Washington D.C.,
Yeah.
Atlanta.
Yeah.
I mean, Indianapolis doesn't even come close, really. But I mean, you're living in some major metropolitan areas. You
Yep.
like the big city, I take it.
I think so. I guess, as musicians, it's like hard to end up in a small city.
Mhm.
I do like Chicago will always be my home, but I don't miss the weather for sure. And I'm sure you get plenty of that experience. I'm sure every time I come back, I think because of Atlanta and then LA, I've totally become a baby with weather. And when I go back, I think, oh my gosh, I've forgotten how crazy cold this is right on the lake in Chicago. It's just it's intense, but yeah, definitely, I enjoyed the big city thing. I enjoyed the time in the Tetons when it's quiet and slower moving, but I like the pace of a big city.
Yeah, I'm reminded. I don't complain when I talk to anybody from Minneapolis, right? It's like, yeah, we don't know what our true winter is.
Totally.
You know,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think
so
it's really funny when it's starting to drizzle here, or it's maybe 50, and you see people in their winter coats and they have big boots on. You're like, are you crazy people? Like all
um,
huddled up.
I'm curious about your time in the President's Own.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, had you ever really considered a service band, or was this an opportunity? How'd that come about, and why'd you do it?
Yeah, I thought that was always a possibility for me. Growing up in a really strong band community, I loved playing in wind ensembles, and every time I heard recordings of the Presidents, and that was my goal was that band, that specific band.
Mhm.
So I had never auditioned for any of the other branches, but I was pretty young, so I hadn't actually taken that many auditions anyways. But when that job opened, I was actually staying at Barbara and Charlie's house because they were in the Tetons. This is when I was a grad student,
Mhm.
and all I did was take care of their horses and their house and their cats and dogs and practice. So I just stayed there and I was playing day practicing this. So it was a good time to just focus on that. And then when I took it and I got the job, I knew I wanted to do it. So I just, said, okay, that's kind of why I'm in school, is to get a job like this.
Mhm.
So I started it and I loved my experience there. It was a little intense because I enlisted in September of 2001, and it was 5 days before September 11th happened when I enlisted in the Marine Corps. So it was a little intense, but it was a non-deployable band, so there was no worry there. But driving up into DC to see the Pentagon just in a really rough state, it was a little interesting. But in general, my time in the band was just amazing. I made so many close friends, and the friendships and the sort of collegiate and kind atmosphere amongst the musicians is really hard
Mm.
to replicate. There's a lot of rough jobs that you do, a lot of amazing jobs, and there's sort of this atmosphere of no matter what the job is, you're all just kind of in it together, and it was always just very awesome. I loved it, and I'm still close friends with a lot of those people.
Um, and I know this may sound cliche, but thank you for your service.
Thank you.
And I mean that. I served. I was in the Air Force, and actually,
Awesome.
I was stationed at the Pentagon. Um,
Wow.
but this was 10 years, 11 years before.
Wow.
And I remember watching, the news.
Wow.
I remember exactly where my office was,
Oh man. Well, thank you.
and thinking, well, I missed it by 10 years, 11 years, but
But still, that's
it's
that's
still
close.
right because you were there,
Yeah.
uh, you knew things about that. But
Yeah. Well, thank you for
um,
your service.
oh well, thank you.
Yeah.
It's Lee Greenwood was our guest artist last weekend. God bless the USA
Nice.
guy. And
Yeah.
I went up and talked to him after rehearsal. And first thing he said to me, I was wearing a veteran's cap. And, first thing he said
Hmm.
was, and it, was genuine coming from him. I was like, man, I hadn't heard that in a long time. But
Yeah.
because
Sure.
I've been out for 31 years. I
Yeah.
mean, you know,
Yeah.
um, I was really young when I went in. I was only 2.
Sure. That makes sense. Okay,
Yeah,
that makes
yeah,
the math
yeah.
works out.
No, but it's hard to think. My gosh, had I stayed in, I could have been well retired by now.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
I could have just retired. Well, almost, not quite. Definitely, it's like, and it's amazing seeing friends that are in their 40s retiring and then doing entire new, jobs and careers. It's really, it's a great thing.
Well, that's what my dad did. 24 years in the Air Force. He retired
Wow,
when he was 42.
wow, that's amazing.
My oldest son he just hit his 10-year mark in the Army, and he's looking at only another 10 before he'll be 42 when
Yeah,
he gets out. I'm thinking,
there you go.
good for you,
Wow,
kiddo. He's gonna.
definitely,
So,
it's incredible.
yeah, I of course I grew up in that, right? So service was kind of
Yeah,
expected.
sure.
Um, and I'm glad I did it. I can't say that
Yeah,
it was for everybody, but I'm sure glad I did it. Um,
for sure, for
and
sure.
I was supposed to go into the band, but this is a great recruiter story, which I won't share right now. But let's just say the recruiter met his quota that month.
I see. Gotcha.
Yeah,
So you
yeah,
didn't go into the band.
no. But I did audition,
Yeah.
and it was right before a drawdown for Desert Eagle. This was 89 or
Wow.
90, I can't remember.
Yeah.
And anyways, they froze all the transfers, so I didn't. I
Mm.
was on one side of the Potomac, and I couldn't make it to the other side, unfortunately.
You
So
wow. Oh,
um,
oh, there we go.
yeah,
Glitched.
I know it's been kind of glitchy tonight.
It's a little glitchy, yeah.
Yeah, I keep looking at my Wi-Fi. My Wi-Fi looks good here, but I
Oh,
apologize for
no
that. But
worries. No worries.
um, yeah, but this has happened before. But what it turns out is everybody says they don't notice anything.
Oh,
So
we just noticed it. Nobody
it's
else.
it's maybe just us. I hope
They'll
that's
just
the
see
case.
us be a little awkward for a second.
Right, right. So, well,
It's
I'm
the
really good
glitch.
at being awkward all the time. So,
Sorry, me too.
if I can blame it on Wi-Fi, that's even better.
That sounds good.
So,
I'll blame that too. Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
Um, so 4 years there.
Mhm.
Okay, so Tom is taking auditions. Are you thinking, okay, I'm just going to let him focus on that, and you're going to focus on because what if you had both won uh, separate
A
orchestras?
job.
Yeah.
Well, we sort of early on had a joke understanding that whoever won the bigger gig, the other would go. And so when I was really happy in the Marine Band. I loved the Marine Band. I was enjoying my experience a lot. And so I wasn't itching to audition at all. For anyone that knows, Tom knows, he's always ready for the next challenge, whatever it may be. And so he was actively taking auditions in the Marine Band. Although he loved the Marine Band too, don't get me wrong. He actually really really loved it there too. But he when we were in, so I got in a year after he did, and so he had less time left. And toward the end of his time in the band, he had decided that he was just going to freelance and audition, and so he had told them, you can re-up for 2 years or 4 years. He had said, okay, thank you, but I'm gonna do this, and I was gonna be the breadwinner. He ended up leaving. He won the Indianapolis job, and so
Mhm.
he moved while I was still in the band. So we were separate for that year. And at that point, I had a hard choice. It was either going to be separate. But then when Amy Gilreath asked me about the sabbatical, which was close enough to Indy that I could kind of go back and forth. And at the same time, I asked John Hagstrom, can I come back and finish this degree? It seemed to work out really well together. And so it just seemed like things aligned too well for me to not do it. So and at that point and this is a whole new topic, but I knew at the end of my Marine band, actually I knew throughout the whole thing, but I knew I needed to fix my phase, my embouchure. I was not playing in the most efficient setup, and I got to a point where I knew it was either going to be, this is where I'm at with a few areas in my playing, or I got to. When I went back to study, I said, okay, I'm going to tackle this. This is the time. I'm out of my job. I'm, teaching, and I had sort of a lull in my my gigging. And so I kind of tackled it while I was teaching at Illinois State and finishing my master's and changing my embouchure. It was a little bit of a crazy time, a good time, but also tough at the same time. And so that was kind of all at once. And then after that, we moved to Atlanta, and I was on this really new, unstable embouchure. And so I was trying to, establish myself as a freelancer, but also not push it too much because I wasn't totally comfortable. But I got there. It took some time, and I worked through it, and I can play some of those things now.
Well, can I ask what was it you were trying to fix? You mentioned deficiency, but what
Yeah.
was it? Position or?
It was so I could do some things well, but I do not probably efficient way. And so the things that I needed really to improve on was my range and my endurance. And the reason was because I was playing I essentially had a major French horn embouchure. I was playing really high. I was playing with a lot of upper lip, not enough lower lip. I was smiling. Everything was super thin. So I could pick stuff off pretty easily. I could play really comfortably soft and low and soft and high. And I won the Marine band that way. So it took me up to a point. But the thing was, I would get to a point playing where I felt like I had to take it off my face for a second because I was basically pinning it in a position. And I knew that I couldn't, and, through John's guidance too, because I was definitely the Chicago sort of hear it and play kind of upbringing. And so I was hearing it and I was not able to play it. It's like, just hear it and blow. It's like, I'm doing that and it's not working. So I knew so the process, it sucked for a while, but it really helped me to teach. I really found that I was able to now understand when students were going through things where they felt like they weren't on a comfortable face, or they felt like something was different or new, because I had gone through it. And so, I learned a lot of what not to do in that process. I think it took me longer than it really should have taken because I didn't really know what I was doing. I was just sort of figuring it out as I went. And John set me up well, but then I was on my own. It's like, and it felt like every time I put it to my mouth, it was like, it's like I'm writing with my other hand. Like, this feels weird. Like, I know what I'm doing, but it doesn't feel right. So I think it really helped me to just understand habit and repetition. And I didn't do all of those things well at first, but I kind of, once I finally got into that, then my improved makeup.
I think you froze up again. I can
Oh,
understand
there you
this.
go.
I can understand you doing this if you were only a student, but if you're trying to teach and
Yeah.
gig at the same time, I mean,
Yeah.
and of course
Yeah.
we had a little bit of a discussion before we started the interview tonight. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm kind of going through the same thing where it's like you're trying to rediscover, and so you do exactly. Well, I'm trying to muscle my way through
Yep.
some things, right? It sounds like what
Yeah.
you're talking about too.
Definitely. Well, it's like if it's not efficient, then that's the only way it's going to work is by pinning it or pinching it or muscling it or doing it not inorganically, I guess is the word I'm looking for. But
Yeah.
for sure, yeah.
Um, how long of a process was that?
Oof. Well, I when I started it, I kind of, and this is now what I would not recommend to someone. I kind of did it in pieces, and I think going full cold turkey probably would have
Mm,
been the better way. Um, you know, the first thing I did to not pull back, smile, and do a little bit more of a forward approach. But what I quickly realized is, and this is again another whole topic, that my teeth weren't in a position for me to be able to do that. I have a narrow mouth, and so to pull your corners forward when there's no teeth behind them to
mm,
brace against, I realized like that's not going to work in the position I was in. So then I had to pull it down, and so I kind of did. I think over the course of a year, I finally got to where I wanted to be, but I wasn't good at it yet. And so I remember a specific gig I'll never forget. I was playing in Atlanta and I was in the right embouchure for me, but it didn't feel like home yet. And it was just a really easy, simple church gig I was playing. And I was playing second trumpet, and it had just a soft, exposed entrance, something that before was super comfortable for me. That was a happy place.
mhm,
And but I felt like the only way I can get to respond is by blowing a lot of air on this new embouchure. And I was having a panic trying to figure out how am I going to come in on this soft note in a new foreign face. And so I quickly realized like no, the way I was training myself was to on this new face to hold my breath. And so I was uh but the problem is I had built that into my new embouchure. So then I had to go back. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna play, play over and over again, no matter what comes out. I've got to train my embouchure and my body that when you breathe in, you let it out. You don't hold it. Anyway,
mhm.
so it was kind of a many month, probably 2 years before
Wow.
I felt like I get to this gig, they put the music in front of me, it's fine. And, I remember playing at an IWBC conference one in the middle of that. And this group, the Monarch Brass, is it's a group that together re IWBC, and I was a mess. I was telling my friend Ginger Turner, I love her. She's in the Army Field Band for a long time. She retired, and they were doing part assignments, and I was telling her like, this is a really tough brass concert. I'm super stressed out. I don't know if I can do this, and I was trying not to make people think I was having chop problems because
Mhm,
in my brain I knew I was on a path and I knew I was going to get there because I'm stubborn, but I wasn't there yet. And so um, I had to, at that point, I realized I have to stop putting myself in stressful situations because now I'm ingraining this sort of stress in there
mhm.
as well and performance anxiety. So I stopped taking. Ooh, you there? There you go.
Yep.
I stopped taking tough gigs, and I just worked hard. And I would take things that I knew I could do with relative low stress, and my I think it helped a lot. And it was hard to do that, but it's what I needed to do.
2 years. I mean, that's hard to
Yeah,
imagine. I mean,
yeah,
for a trumpet player, right? I mean, we want things and we want it now, right?
definitely.
And
Well, and I
we are
might
not
say,
we're not
well, I
patient
would say with
people.
two, definitely. Well, and I think it took me probably a year to feel like I know what I'm doing, I'm in the right place. And then another year for me to just constantly retrain that. So I felt like it was home again. I felt like after a year I could do stuff. It just didn't feel, I had to think about it, like, am I doing this correctly? Make sure I this. So I'd say another year where I felt like it just kind of became my normal way of playing again.
Was this a Schlossberg and a flexibilities kind of focus, or Conconi or Bordoni? I mean, what kind of materials were you using to get through this?
Person helped me a ton was Vince DiMartino.
Yeah.
I did some of his lead pipe stuff. He really helped me because my air was just too slow. Everything I was doing was a little bit too open, a little bit too slow. I was using too much air, but not fast enough air. And so I did a lot of his lead pipe stuff that helps me sort of learn how to access the horn from a higher position instead of constantly stretching or letting go. And so that helped me sort of retrain it. I don't think I use specific material, but I tried to use that approach in all of those other things. And I then, once I felt like I was in a better place, then I took the Barbara Butler method of layering all your practicing, practicing your lip slurs, practicing your double tongue, practicing your triple tongue, practice your excerpts, and trying to make sure that on all of those things, I was keeping those in balance while making sure my fast lead pipe air that Vince was helping me with was present in all of those things. Because it's really easy to play low Clarks like with super tubby, slow air. But could I play it with a fast airstream in the low register? I just had never done that before. And so that sort of connection helped my endurance. It helped my range. I could play, probably almost an octave higher on piccolo than I'd ever been able to play. I didn't have much control, but I was learning how to at least access it when before it was like I would hit, go for the F on the piccolo and then I was done. Like I couldn't go any higher. I was stuck. Whereas before I'm like, oh my God, I'm hitting A's and like I can hit, all these notes and I can last longer because I'm not pinching it and squeezing it. So anyway, that was my long fun process.
I remember the first time Vinny was demonstrating the lead pipe thing, and like G on top of the staff is home base.
It's home, exactly.
Right. And it's like, wait a second, well, wait a minute. It's so arbitrary that we choose second line G, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
Why not? I mean, if you're going to go say that, why not high C?
Yeah, that's very true. Yep, you can totally do that. And I think what I loved was his, he'd be in a lesson with him and he would just tap you with a pencil. And anytime he did that, you had to whip up to that G. And if you had to like ramp up your airspeed to get up to it, you knew, oh man, I've been letting it too loose. It actually has helped me a lot with when I start students. It really changed my way of thinking because I think that teachers, band directors like use these books that are sort of geared for an entire band. But it always starts trumpeters on a low C. I noticed that like it's easy. Anyone can play a low C without any sort of effort. And so I've definitely been starting students higher and it's a little more tough at first, but once they kind of get there, then their home base is sort of place. So yeah, it's also revamped. So I think this whole embouchure thing has been very good. It just was tough.
Did you have to change equipment through all this? Like, were you playing on a 1 and then now you're on a 3 or a 5 kind of move?
Definitely. I was playing on really big equipment because my embouchure was essentially French horning inside. It was coming inside the mouthpiece. And so I was like falling and I was kind of like doing one of these versus a little bit more of that. And so I was playing on, I think it was about it was a B cup, way too big for me. And I'm not huge. I'm like 5'2" and, kind of small. And so it was too big. I was playing on big piccolo equipment because I would bottom out on these mouthpieces. And so what John actually had me do was to take a 7E mouthpiece from my pick and stock through piece on my C and B flat and not play anything else. And I could hardly do it. I was hitting the bottom on the pick, my 3C, and now I play mostly on a 3-ish, range for my normal mouthpiece, but it was weird.
That's kind of the journey I'm taking right now, is to try to
really?
much, well, some people don't say shallow, they say compact, but
sure.
It's shallow, right? I have a 3E that I actually enjoy playing on right now because it makes it easy. It's not the sound. It's not the sound I want right now, but
but it works on the focus and on the set, so you're not too open. And that's great. Yeah.
And it's funny, the older I get, the less macho I try to be. I could play on a 1B, right? But now it's
But
like, why do I
why?
want to work that hard?
Exactly. Why? Who's checking your number anyway
Yeah,
on the
right.
mouthpiece, really?
Well, it's like, we imagine everybody
Definitely.
sitting out in the
I
audience
re-
with a score,
like
checking the score while we're playing. That doesn't happen, right?
that doesn't happen. Exactly. They don't know that we're playing on a 1B or a 3C. Nobody cares.
Right, right.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
I was gonna to go with that smaller mouthpiece thing. I remember John calling it the spotter mouthpiece, and so I would actually practice on a super small pea shooter mouthpiece, maybe just a couple minutes a day to try and keep working on that focus. And and I'm talking super shallow, like jazz. I couldn't literally get no note on that when I started because it was just my face wanted to fall in so much.
Hmm.
But it did help me just understand how sort of it's easy to hear things and see things in other people, but when it's on yourself, it's tough, I find, to really have a good perspective of what you're doing. And I think of and how daily coaches and people helping them, divers with their coach right there, and why there's this stigma with triple players that we don't need help. I'm going to do it myself, and I think that's just ridiculous. So I was an adult getting lessons with Vince, and I had no shame. It's like, well, I'm either going to get help and figure it out, or I'm just going to quit. So I don't care.
Well, and it's Vince, right? I mean, if anybody's going to help, I mean,
Yep.
Vinny's the best.
Oh, he is the best. I love him. He's great.
He was my first teacher. I don't know how many times
Oh,
I've told
nice.
people, this, but of course everybody knows it. But
Yeah.
I just think the world of him. And in fact, I texted him
Oh,
about some of my issues, and
yeah.
it's Vinny's just one of these great resources. He's kind of like
Yep.
no nonsense, no panic. Yeah,
Yep.
okay, let's talk about it. Let's do this. Let's try this. So,
Yep.
um, yeah, it's funny. I'm just thinking, you're right. When you're older, there's less of that fear about reaching
Yeah.
out about things,
Yep.
and like I may have said this earlier, it was like the pride doesn't get in the way,
Exactly.
and it shouldn't get in the way. But
Yep. Yeah.
when you're young and you don't want to let anybody know there's an issue, and you want to get every gig, you
Yeah.
take every gig whether you can play it or not.
Definitely. Exactly. It's definitely I think it's hard because you don't want people to think or judge that you might be going through something, or it
Hmm.
might affect your hiring or any of that. But I don't know of hardly any players that haven't gone through something, and they could have maybe gone through it quicker or easier if they had some support and help. So I'm all for that.
Well, and you even mentioned this a few minutes ago. I mean, this helps you become a better teacher,
Yeah.
because now you can empathize with
Yeah.
somebody who comes through your studio, and you can say, "Been there, done that.
Yeah. Yep.
Here's the
For
t-shirt,"
sure.
right?
Then they're done. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think it helps not only just help teach them, but to just understand when it's hard, and it feels like they're playing on a foreign embouchure, or they just feel stuck. That I've been there, and
Hmm.
a lot of us have been there. So
Hmm. Aside from Arbans,
yeah.
what are you focusing on right now?
I think in general, just keeping my playing balanced when not having much of an outlet for performing, and knowing that these things are starting to open up, and aside from the Tetons, that hopefully in the fall things will be ramping up again in LA and elsewhere. So I'm working on just trying to balance everything, making sure that I'm still, I have this ridiculous chart that keeps me sort of in check with make I haven't forgotten to play piccolo in 3 months, or forgotten to double tongue or whatever. So I'm just trying to keep it balanced. And I've been playing more fun etudes and solos just on the side. Just it's like, oh, my student's working on this. I'm going to work on this for 2 weeks, and just feel like I know the piece so I can demonstrate. And yeah, so I've been. I think Arbin is sort of my project, and then trying to keep balanced and find efficient ways to practice when having my 4-year-old's home 24/7, we've finally been able to get some more childcare here and there, but for a year plus we had pretty much nobody helping. So Tom and I were rotating. He would teach, I would be with the kids doing school, then we would flip and I would do that, and then he'd go take an hour to practice, I'd go take an hour to practice, and then you put him to bed and you're like, I got to practice more, I've got to do my arbin. It's midnight, it's like, oh my gosh. Let's do it again tomorrow. So it feels like just doing what I can, make sure I'm staying in shape with my horn and doing this project and keeping my kids, alive and schooled.
Duets. Do you guys ever play duets?
Yeah, we do. It depends. We have, like during the pandemic, we've done it more. But still, you'd be surprised, like how many times, like weeks will go by and we haven't. We're like, what are we doing? Why are we not doing this?
Yeah, but I'm asking because I think the natural progression here, once you finish the 150 art of phrasing, is for you guys to record the entire series of duets from there.
We have talked about that. That's a good plan. We should do that.
Yeah. So since I brought it up, I get a cut.
All right, sounds good. A cut of the $0.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Do you think it would be better to play the duets together or minus one part so people could play along? Do people even want to hear duets of
Yes. Yes.
Duets?
I think yes. Right. And I think, of course, make it so that they can subtract the first or second part,
Yeah, that's a good plan.
Right, cool. and on C trumpet, right? Maybe give a transposed version as well.
There you go. All right, we got a lot of work coming up to do then.
Yeah. So in fact, that's of course the 150 art songs are great for transposition, teaching transposition as well.
Very true.
Right?
Yep.
In fact, when people say, "Oh, the arbins is so limited, it doesn't work on high register, it doesn't work on transposition," I said, "Well, why don't you just read it up an octave? Why don't you work on, read it up a fifth, read it up a."
Definitely, you're like F transposition. That would be definitely tough on your. And I've actually played a lot of those art of phrasing on piccolo. I mean, you can read them, read them in C, like up a minor third on your A pick, put it in C trumpet, and I think those work well too.
Don't you love talking transposition with tuba players? Right? Because they don't, right? They're just
like, no, you just change the fingerings.
Yeah, right. It's like, no, that's not how you do it. So, yeah.
No, you have different fingerings for all the different, like, that makes no sense to me.
Yeah. Hey, we're right at an hour. I want to respect your time, but I want to say thank you. But I would love to visit with you again down the road and see how the project's coming along.
Sounds great.
And hopefully have a glitch-free interview after the fact. But
well, thank you.
Let me wrap up here.
Sure.
And I will say to Marisa and William. Oh, William Clendenin, is that somebody you know as well?
I think just on social media, but
okay.
Yes.
So thank you. Thank you for joining in. And of course, this interview is going to be available on the YouTube channel tomorrow, as well as the audio will be available on your podcast platforms. And I'll make sure I edit any of the glitch stuff out if it exists. Of course, I do want to say thank you to Trent Austin and Austin Custom Brass for sponsoring this interview. Do you know Trent?
We've run into each other at random things. So yes, I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen him, but definitely I've seen him at different ITGs and conferences, and I know we've hung out here and there. I just it's been a little while. Great guy, and just like I say this every week, is like a kid with oh my gosh. It's like Christmas every day for him. Yep, and he's just so versatile with his playing and teaching and his brass stuff and all the videos. He's just great. Yeah, and another great resource, right? All of that stuff is such a great help to the trumpet community. Definitely. So again, Trent, thank you, Trent, and Austin Custom Brass, of course, austinCustomBrass.biz if you want to find their website. Of course, next week I've got Sarah Stone back joining me, then James Morrison the week after that, and Chris Coletti rounding out the month of June. So, of course, this has been great with you tonight, Jen. I appreciate you being here. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's really nice. So hang on right there. I'm going to sign off here with everybody. Again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.